Thank you. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Mattson,
Here.
Commissioner Hughes,
Present.
Commissioner Christian, Vice Chair Artis, and Chair McClinton Horner.
Here.
Thank you.
Do we need to excuse their absences?
Vice Chair Artist was unable to attend tonight due to a work conflict, and Commissioner Christian notified us prior to the meeting that he had a pre-planned trip, so both are excused for tonight.
Thank you. Okay, first on the agenda is a presentation from MCE.
Good evening. Everyone can hear me? Wonderful. Good evening, commissioners, and thank you to everyone that's attending tonight. I really appreciate your time. My name is Dave Gardy. I'm the Community Development Manager with MCE. And right away, I just wanted to quick apology on the typo. I realize it's open space and not open spaces, but not a big deal. Yeah, I know, right? So again, thank you for letting me speak with you this evening. MCE's mission is to confront the climate crisis by eliminating greenhouse gases from our energy grid. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit tonight about how we do that and how we can work together with American Canyon as members of MCE to accelerate our transition to a sustainable energy future. So the way MCE works is we buy the electricity from clean power plants. It goes through PG&E's transmission lines, and then you as a customer, either resident, business, receive the electricity. So you'll see that MCE will exist on your PG&E bill as a line item, and it's split between the transmission and the generation, so we're on the generation. Our agency is a community choice aggregator, and in 2002, the legislation that enabled the creation of MCE was passed by the state of California, and now there are 25 CCAs, community choice aggregators, throughout the state. When the City of American Canyon joined by the City Council voting to become part of the Joint Powers Authority, there's an opt-in model, so everyone got opted in, and if people want to go back to PG&E for their generation service, they can. And they can opt out at any time. They can always opt back in. So we are a not-for-profit public agency, and instead of shareholders, we have a board of directors comprised of elected officials throughout our service area. And so here in Napa County, you have elected officials that represent the whole county, and through that setup, you have more local control rather than a shareholder. So what have we been able to accomplish with this setup, buying this electricity from greener sources? So because we're a not-for-profit model, we're able to just put all that money into buying the electricity from greener sources, and we have already been able to generate 95% of our electricity from greenhouse gas-free sources and met state goals that mandate the percentage of renewable sources 13 years earlier. So we are supposed to, by 2030, reach a goal of 60% of all renewable sources onto the grid for the power generation. And we've met that goal 13 years early. And I know it's a little bit complicated of a graph. Happy to chat through what this all means if you like. So where exactly are we getting this power? So here we can see a comparison chart. Now this is not exact. This is an approximation, but it shows that we're getting our renewable sources from mostly geothermal, hydroelectric, solar, and wind. And we also do get a considerable amount from large hydroelectric as well. But large hydroelectric is not considered renewable by the CPUC. So while it is a cleaner source of energy, it is not, we don't consider it a renewable source. And it is greenhouse gas free too. So, MCE is, American Canyon is part of MCE by voting to join that Joint Powers Authority. And there's an 86.4% participation rate. That is to say, 86.4% of the customers in the service area have decided to stay with MCE. And as I said earlier, they can always opt to PG&E if they like. 10% of the customers in American Canyon participate in our Deep Green service, which is 100% renewable. Now, the reason that's important is it recently was something like 3%, but last year our board of directors elected to change the model so that all new customers would be automatically opted into our Deep Green service. And that produced tremendous growth rate throughout 2023 because it started in January 1st. And we've now hit 10% in American Canyon, and that's pretty similar around Napa County. We've seen some places as high as 20. Now, as you saw in that graph earlier, we're already getting 95% of our generation service from greenhouse gas-free sources. So even if you're not in Deep Green, the electricity that you're using is from mostly greenhouse gas-free sources, right? And because of that tremendous growth that we've seen, we're actually running into the issue that we want to make sure that that Deep Green service is affordable, but as large customers opt for Deep Green, it becomes harder to find those sources of energy at more it's price effective. So we've actually taken a pause for commercial entities to opt into Deep Green at this point, and for folks to automatically be enrolled for new service. But residents can still opt in if they would like. So you still have that option for residential, I believe. That will be revisited, and we're hoping to have a more robust Deep Green service at the beginning of next year. So stay tuned for that. So I know it's a little complicated. Anyways, over 9,000 metric tons of CO2 have been reduced by participating in MCE. And we've also distributed a lot of dollars through our energy efficiency programs that I'll talk about in a bit. And I should also mention that, like the rest of Napa County, American Canyon has shown real leadership by the council voting to become having all of the municipal accounts be Deep Green in 2021. So besides just our energy efficiency programs and our generation service, we also want to be part of the community through support of critical services. So we are members of the chamber. We sponsor organizations like the American Canyon Community Parks Foundation. We also work with the Napa County Regional Conservation District and Napa Climate Now, because we know that there are great organizations here in American Canyon and throughout the county that are doing great work, and we can support them. We're going to do it. So one other thing you may not know about is one of our generation plants is right here in American Canyon. It came online in 2019. It's one of the largest solar farms in the whole county, and it generates power for over 1,000 homes. You may have seen it. I believe it's right off the 80. I've seen it once. And yeah. Yeah, it's right next to, yeah, exactly. It's right next to some agricultural land there. Yeah, so it's right here. So one thing we try and do is we try and source our power from local sources. We have over 48 megawatts of generation service coming right here in the Bay Area. And, whenever possible, we try to get that power locally. So I talked a bit about the energy efficiency programs, and we have a robust portfolio of programs. So we have energy efficiency that can benefit commercial entities, electric vehicle rebates for both commercial and multifamily properties. We are working on energy resiliency, so we've had in the past, and we're going to reopen our battery storage program, and we have electrification money. So that is changing from gas appliances to electric. And we also work on health and safety, which we know with fires is very important. So we've actually given out portable batteries to folks that are on a medical baseline. Especially here in this county, you have a lot of people that are out in the rural area that rely on electricity. So we just gave them big Yeti batteries so they can have a few hours of reliable service if the power goes out and they're on, they need that power. So again, we try to have a lot of different ways we can work with our communities to transition to a sustainable energy future. And I'd like to talk to you more about ways we can work together, the City of American Canyon and MCE, to highlight these programs to make sure folks are taking advantage. One thing that I was worked on with a supervisor who'd like to see this happen is there's an industrial park here in American Canyon by the airport. And those large businesses could save a lot of money on their utility bills while also reducing greenhouse gases by taking advantage of our no-cost energy efficiency consulting. So we've hired energy efficiency engineers that will just go to your site and show you where you can save money. And we also have rebates for things like changing out pumps and HVAC, things like that, lighting. So there's a lot to take advantage of, and we want to make sure that folks know about it. So that's something I would love to work on with the city. So to wrap up, you can see some of the effects we've had throughout our service area since we've been in existence, and we're looking forward to adding to that with you, and if you have any questions about our different programs or how exactly things work on a technical level, I'd be happy to discuss that with you now. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm sure we have a couple of questions for
Sure
you.
thing.
You showed the statistic about the 380,000 people and the percent.
See which one? Lots of numbers here.
Yeah. 332,000 people, 86% participation rate. That's throughout the whole region, right?
Yeah, the county, yeah.
Do you know what American Canyon is?
Or not, you know what, I'm not sure on that number. I think American Canyon is fairly low. It's not a huge city, but I apologize, I don't know that number off the top of my
Or the
head.
percentage?
Oh, the percentage, I think it is about 86, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll look that up for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be good. This is one of the items we've identified on our sustainability plan, so
Okay,
good to know, for our dashboard, how we do over time.
sure thing.
Also, you mentioned the no-cost consulting for the businesses.
Yeah.
Has this been presented to the Chamber of Commerce yet?
Yes, and I know that they're busy. We do have someone that we have a business relationship manager or business development manager that we'd love to reconnect.
Yeah.
So if that's something that you feel would be beneficial, we'd love to do that. Something we're pursuing in St. Helena is actually a co-branded mailer, and it's something we'd love to explore with the city as well, where we'll put together and pay for and mail out mailers that we'd love to partner with the city on, so that the city says, hey, there's these programs available. Mm-hmm. And we've seen success in the past for other programs, and we think that putting together something like that for our business programs could be beneficial.
To sign up for MCE, could it be as simple as sending a mailer like that has maybe a detachable postcard that somebody could just mail back and sign and convert it, or do they have to? There's more steps.
So I mean, that can certainly work to get the process started. It's typically there's an interest form you would sign up online. If you're signing up for something like that, you need to use a decent amount of power, right? Because that energy efficiency consulting is pretty in depth, and so it's typically think of like a winery or a bottling plant, something like that has a lot of processes and equipment. So it would be a fairly select number of people receiving this postcard or whatever. One thing that's super helpful is identifying who the person we should speak to, right? So that's something cities oftentimes have that information as well. So if they have those relationships, that's a great avenue to explore.
Could something like that work for residences?
For different programs, yeah. So we've worked with, for instance, in the city of Vallejo, a mailer went out like this for our electric vehicle rebate program. So we have an instant rebate now, so that if you qualify based on income and you go to the dealership, they'll apply our $3,500 rebate instantly when you buy a car. You don't have to do any paperwork. And that's on top of the federal and state incentives. So we had good response when we sent out those kind of mailers. So when we say residential, it really depends on the program, right?
All right, thank you.
Sure thing.
And Commissioner Mattson?
Yeah, hi. I have various questions for you. One is demand response. Do you run your demand response program through PG&E or is it through MCE?
So we have our own demand response programs.
Okay.
Part of our demand response is a commercial program we have a lot of programs. So
Yeah.
it's kind of vague. We have one called Peak Flex Market that will actually incentivize or pay large users of energy to reduce load during I think it's it's 3 to 10 or 4 to 9 during peak months, right? So again, it's entities that can have some ability to change when they do processes and use equipment and things like that. But yeah, we do have a demand response program that energy efficiency consulting is also kind of a demand response as well, right? We have a 4 to 9 marketing campaign that we run. That's something else we can work on with residents. As we all know, when power goes out, it's not great. So one thing we can all do is alleviate strain on the grid by using less energy 4 to 9. And we have internet ad campaigns and buses and things like that. We try to get the word out there about that.
Okay. I have another question. Thank you. I
Sure.
used to work in demand response. That's why I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to ask you back when you were talking about having people opt in or be automatically enrolled. Did you say you're putting the pause on people opting into the commercial deep green?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then on residential, are you?
I believe you still can. Yeah.
Okay.
For small accounts, I think it's fine.
Okay. And then for residential, are they still being automatically put into deep green?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So got it.
Yeah.
The other question I had was whether the city has anybody that they interact directly with the MCE, like your business development manager, or if that's a role that hasn't been defined yet.
So I'm the liaison for all the municipal partners in Napa County, and recently I've been working with Erica as my local contact. But we're pretty open to whoever you think is best.
Great. I think those were my 2 questions. Yes, because I think you had some of the same questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Commissioner Hughes?
Forgot I had a question. Can you provide electricity for 100% of the customers? I mean, if everybody shifted over, or do you guys have a cap? Is there?
You mean if everyone that was not currently opted in?
If everyone opted in?
Yeah, no, that wouldn't be a problem. The bigger question I think that we're all confronting as a society is what happens when we shift away from fossil fuels completely. And that's a longer conversation. It will be an incremental process. But through the Inflation Reduction Act that we've seen from the federal government and now things coming down from the state, including regional mandates by the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, the shift away from fossil fuel use, especially in the home, is coming, right? The use of heat pump for your water heater, your HVAC, induction stoves, electric cars, right? It's all switching over to electricity. So as we transition, we will need to ramp up our ability to generate the power when it's needed to meet those demands. And then the other issue is about when that load hits the grid, right? So in the middle of the day, we're fine, right? We got all this solar, it's windy, we've decent power, right? It's when we go from everyone coming home, they get the kids from school, they come home, everyone's using the TVs, they're cooking, all that stuff. So there's a big push now to get power that is on the grid when we need it. So some of that is battery storage. Some of that, we just signed a contract for more geothermal, which can stay on the grid 24/7, right? So happy to talk about those kind of things whenever you like.
My other question was, I'm trying to grasp what you guys do entirely. Do you guys actually construct solar projects? Or do you just contract with, like what's down out in American Canyon Road? Was that somebody's idea to build it and then you guys buy the energy, or do you guys fund that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we are looking at actually at some point developing it ourselves. The way it currently works is the developers know we're here. And it's one of the reasons we've seen a faster acceleration of renewable energy projects, because the developers of those projects know there's a market. Since the CCAs are only interested in buying power that is renewable, or at the very least clean, right? The developers and the contractors, manufacturers, they all know that we're able to buy that power, and we want to buy that power. So that market signal is really helpful for them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Another item that is on our potential item on our climate action plan is the backup battery power. Can you explain how that works? And I think that there's a lot of people confused, thinking there's some misconceptions.
Absolutely, yeah. Battery backup power is a very complicated subject, especially since we've seen such a huge rise in demand for batteries. And while the price for the raw materials has gone down, the demand is so high, it's oftentimes a fairly expensive venture, especially for a larger commercial facility. We had an active program that provided technical assistance and funding for battery backup systems at critical facilities. And we are completing those projects. We put a pause on it to reevaluate, and we're hoping to launch that program again, hopefully early next year. And the reality is that while what we have right now are lithium-ion batteries that are good for things like cars and your cell phone and your laptop, because they discharge power quickly and they can be recharged quickly, batteries will probably not look the same, especially for buildings in the next 10, 20, 30 years. There's also now, we're also looking at like, okay, do we need to power every single building? Or can we do something where we provide the power at the substation level, where instead of, if the power goes out and the lucky few who have battery backup, they're fine. If you do it at the substation level, you can potentially, be resilient at a town level, maybe a few thousand homes at a time, right? I would point to an effort that's happening in Calistoga to install a green hydrogen long duration storage plant, so that this would be at the substation level, so that if the power were to go out, you would have hydrogen, which is produced through, you can produce it like through solar. You split water into hydrogen and oxygen, and then you can have basically like a big hydrogen battery, and you mix it back with the oxygen, and then you create electricity. And so that kind of thing. There's going to be all kinds of new technologies coming online in the near future. Obviously, I'm a big geek about these things, so anytime you want to nerd out on the technical side, I'd be happy to.
If a resident happen to get a battery and they have solar panels, how long does that battery typically last?
So batteries are sized based on the consumer's needs, right? So, you can have, if you have a battery backup and solar, typically it's going to last you through till the next day, but it may not power all of your circuits, right? So maybe it's like your refrigerator, things that need to stay on, right? But it may not power every last circuit in your house. Maybe the garage lights stay off or whatever, because the battery may not provide enough power. So it really depends on the house. There's like the Tesla Powerwall It's a pretty standard size for a small household, right? That'll get you through till the next day, especially if you have the solar, then it can just keep charging. So yeah, it really depends.
Wonderful,
Sorry, I
thank
don't
you.
have a great answer for you.
Any more questions? Any more?
I have one more.
Go ahead.
What's MCE stand for?
So MCE stands for Marin Clean Energy. We typically just go by MCE because we expanded out into Napa, Solano,
Gotcha.
Contra Costa County. Yeah,
Started in Marin.
it did. Yeah, yeah. And Marin was the first agency of its kind.
Okay. Had to ask.
Sure.
I just
No
thought of
problem.
another question too. On the board members, why isn't an even distribution of it through the different counties? It looks like there's maybe 3 people or 2 people from Napa County and 5 from Contra Costa.
Yeah, it depends on the county. You know, Contra Costa is a larger county, just a lot more cities. Here in Napa County, the council's elected to allow for representation by a supervisor and a council member as representing the entire county and all its cities. And that's Supervisor Gregory and Councilmember Painter.
Okay. Thank you. Thank
Sure.
you very much for informative presentation.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right. Have a nice evening.
Is it- Do we have public comment for this? Is this for items not on the agenda or for the, okay, sorry. Public comment for items not on the agenda.
Okay, Chair, I'd like to acknowledge that we did receive one written public comment from Yvonne Baginski. If there's anybody in the audience that'd like to make a public comment, please go to the podium. Good evening. Would you please state your name for the record?
Yvonne Baginski.
Hi, Yvonne. You
I
have
did
3
write a
minutes.
public comment. I asked a lot of questions, and I'm just trying to gather some information about this commission and how you're going to be operating in the future. And so I did want to talk a little bit about Jeanette and I took a walk with the Greenbelt Alliance over in Sassoon City last week, and they did a walk on seawater rise, and they did it with Sustainable Solano, and it was very informative. They talked a lot about the impact on the community, how they're building their sidewalks, how homes need to be built, where the groundwater is going to be impacted, and they identified 5 regions in the Bay Area where they are actually working. And one was Santa Rosa, one was Richmond, one was Sassoon City. And they only have staff for 5 regions, but there's actually 17 regions, and one of those regions is American Canyon Vallejo. And so if you look at their map, they have a map on their website, and there is a recommendation for American Canyon and Vallejo to work together in finding out how this seawater rise is going to be affecting the communities. And I didn't know whether that would be something that would be coming through this committee or whether somebody else is working on it already. And I know that Erica and I talked last year about bringing in somebody from Greenbelt Alliance or even Save the Bay to do a presentation on how seawater rise would be impacting this community. And they are, we did talk about the lack of resources. They only have so many staff people and this sort of thing. But Jeanette and I have been talking about organizing some sort of a walking event or an event at the library where people could kind of see what's going to be happening. And we found the Sassoon City event very, very informative. I learned a lot on that, just not only on how it would affect Sassoon City, but how it's going to affect this entire region. So I wanted to bring that to the table for all of you. I also wanted to ask you whether or not you'll be reviewing projects that are going before the Planning Commission before they go before the Planning Commission to see what impact they're going to have on the local environment and on the climate action plan, whether there will be a screening process through this commission first. So I have a lot of questions, and I know this isn't the forum for it, but I just want to bring that here and see if whether there's some way we can have a conversation later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Is there anybody else in the audience that'd like to make a public comment? Is there anybody in the Zoom audience that'd like to make a public comment? Please raise your hand. Chair, that looks like all the public comment we have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any proposals for agenda changes tonight? No. Okay, moving on to our consent calendar, we have the minutes of the August 2nd meeting to review. Commissioner Mattson?
Yeah, I wanted to take it off, I actually want to discuss that we had a really good discussion last time about sustainability and what we might want to do. And I know we've changed our minute process, but there's absolutely nothing that says what we decided we would like the city to do. And how do we get that into our minutes so that when we look back, we know, hey, we talked about this before, this is what we thought we might, I know we didn't vote on it, but it's hard to look at minutes when we spent so much time discussing something in depth, came up with something we thought we might want to move forward, and it's not reflected in the minutes. So I guess I want to ask staff, how do we resolve that?
So we actually do action minutes, and that's a decision that is across the board from council all the way down to our commissions, so we don't foresee that changing. The great thing about our meetings is that we have this recorded. All of our commission meetings as well as our council meetings are recorded, and they're archived on our website, so we can always go back and refer. Like, there's many times that I go back and I rewatch these videos. And then we also have the staff reports. But pertaining to the last meeting, Jason Hawley, our city manager, actually sent out a memo to our council with the items that you identified as a commission and where they want to focus. And then last night, as part of council, the council had asked for an update regarding that meeting, and so we plan to bring your plan to council in the future with the 3 items that you identified, and then get further direction from council to make sure that that is the direction they want us to go with that initiative, with the sustainability initiative.
I'm glad to hear that. Can we get a copy of that report sent to us so we could look at it? And then I'd like to also say, perhaps what we should do then is ask that we do take a vote on these things, so we have an action that says the commission is interested in X, Y, and Z, so it's memorialized in our minutes.
Well,
Would that be the way to do it? I mean,
So
I just, when I was preparing for another item tonight, I was so excited. I went back, I found the meeting agenda, I found the discussion, and it literally is a sentence of, the commission decided these are the areas they'd like to pursue. So I'm just trying to figure out how we can change it in the future if this, to make it work. Still within this action minute
I
method.
can bring your comments back to our city manager and get further direction, but at this time, that's how we're going to be doing our minutes moving forward for all of our commissions and our council. And then pertaining to the memo, I will need to speak to the city manager as well about that, because that is a memo to our city council regarding this. So I don't know if that's a shared public document or if that's an internal document. So I'll have to double check with him.
Okay,
That was more of an update.
Yeah.
But when we do bring it to council, that will be a public
Right.
document that everybody will be able to see, anybody will be able to access it, and it will be part of the the council meeting.
Okay, so you get my frustrations. I think you understand why I'm frustrated.
I do, but we have a process, and the process has been set by the city, and we do action minutes for a reason, and it's across the board. It's even at our council level. So changing it for our commission, I don't foresee that
I'm not asking to change it
happening.
for the commission. I'm just suggesting that perhaps as a commission, if we want to have some sort of history in our minutes, perhaps we could suggest, can we take a quick vote on whether this is, and then it would turn into an action item. I don't know. I'm just trying to figure out how. I don't want to go back and listen to hours of meetings. I want to look at the minutes and go, oh, cool, this is where we are. So,
Understood, and I'll get back to you
Okay.
and see if there's anything we can do about it.
great. Then it sounds like I'm not objecting to the minutes because there's nothing I can do about it. So,
How would a deaf member of the community be able to watch these meetings and know what's going on?
That is a great question. I'll have to double check with our communications team on how a lot of our stuff is accessible in many different ways, but I'll have to follow back up with you regarding that question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes?
I'll second.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Mattson,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Chair McClinton Horner.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, on to business items. Update the Newell Open Space Preserve Management Plan. Review the 2001 Newell Open Space Preserve Management Plan, the conservation easement and grazing license, and provide feedback, recommendations regarding the update of the plan.
Great, thank you, Chair. So this evening, we are here to discuss the Newell Management Plan. As you recall, part of our fiscal year work plan 23-24 was to potentially update the management plan. Just to kind of take you back in history and tell you where we were and where we are today. In 1999, Jack and Bernice Newell donated the land, 640 acres, to the city. With that donation came a conservation easement, which is held by the Napa County Land Trust. This is a legal agreement between the landowner and the qualified conservation organization or a government agency that restricts certain activities in order to protect natural, ecological, scenic, and cultural values. This is a voluntary agreement that gives the land trust the right to enter and monitor the property. The Newell Open Space Preserve is a protected and managed piece of land between the city and the land trust. The primary goal of Newell Open Space Preserve is to prevent development, urbanization, and other human activities that could negatively impact the natural environment. The land trust and the city work closely together to protect the habitats and the species in the preserve. And in addition, the Open Space Preserve serves as an agricultural land for the last 150 years. And for the last 50 years, we've actually had the Azevedo family have it be grazing land for the Azevedo family, which is a part of a ranching unit, including Lynch Canyon and Azevedo land. Fast forward to 2001, the city, in partnership with the Land Trust, they adopted the Newell Management Plan. In this plan has two parts. Number one being identify the opportunities, needs, and constraints, and number two, uses and land management. The plan was created to be a management tool for both the city and the Land Trust and is consistent with the conservation easement. In 2001, just to put things into perspective, we didn't have public access. It was really a time where we got the land, we had the conservation easement, we needed a management plan, and there was no public access. But when you read the management plan, there's a potential for that public access. They were planning and preparing in the future to allow public access, and you see that language throughout the document. So beyond 2001, with the help of the community, we now have public access. And in addition, since then, in 2023, the city worked with Cuesta, and we created the Newell Open Space Preserve Public Access Survey. And this study was a design document, and it really served as what you see now, our access into Newell. Back in 2013, there was a survey done. There was 4 options that provided to the community of the different ways that we can get into Newell, and they chose option 3, which is now the entrance from the Newell parking lot into the preserve, with the plan to potentially develop that. And that is what you're going to be hearing about tonight, which is the Newell parking lot project that we're trying to complete, which was started in 2019. However, this is a design document that gets implemented once and scratches the surface on a long-term public access opportunities that potentially we could identify as a community or even as a city. But it was not intended to be our guiding document or principles. And in addition, in 2008, the city worked with the Carbon Solution and conducted a biological survey. This identified the biological community present on the land where we were potentially looking at doing a water quality improvement for the cattle. At one point, there was discussion of developing the natural spring that was up on the loop. And we really wanted to make sure that we understood and we recorded the plants and the animal habitats up there and the species, and evaluate the site for potential support with the sensitive biological resources. And then in 2002, the city secured the first grazing license with the Azevedo family. Like we mentioned earlier, they've been on that land for 50 years, and this was the first time that we've actually formalized this partnership and relationship between the Azevedo family. And it's been a really great experience working with them and getting to know them and understanding their operation. And this grazing license is consistent with Lynch Canyon because we share that property. It's open grazing, and it has been reviewed and approved by the land trust. So the management plan has been a very valuable tool throughout the years. It's helped us make important decisions and has enabled us to achieve significant milestones and successes, like public access we have today. It is a valuable document memorializing the history, the sensitive species and habitats, and it's consistent with the easement. However, the plan was created at a time where we didn't have public access. And as we continue to navigate managing, operating, and maintaining a new open space that has open grazing and allows public access, we need to determine what our baseline is. How are we going to manage, operate, and maintain new open space that allows public access in a preserve that protects natural and sensitive habitats? And we need to determine that for the future. So tonight we're here to really document our baseline, where we are today. Again, we have a great understanding of where we were in 2001 and kind of the history of the biological surveys and the grazing licenses and things, and all the things that have been done with the community's help, with city staff help. But we really need to identify our baseline today, where we're at right now, what we're doing now, to be able to determine the future. We need to understand the type of property that we're working with, what we can and cannot do up there. In partnership with the land trust and having them be a part of that conversation, because any changes that we make to the Newell management plan has to be reviewed and approved by the land trust. And that is including the types of recreational use. When you recall, when you looked at the management plan, there was a lot of things. We did have a passive recreational use identified in there. It's the potential of doing that versus actually doing that. So we need to figure out our baseline to be able to figure out the future. So first, document the baseline, where we're at today, and then look at the management plan and see what needs to be updated to allow public access moving forward. And really understand the land trust's role and the conservation easement, and recognizing that grazing is a natural thing that helps that preserve, and it's something that's been up there longer than the city has owned that property. And how do we manage a property that has open grazing? So tonight, we also, Lena Palastro with the Land Trust is here to help us navigate this wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a presentation by Lena? Where is Lena?
She's on Zoom, so there's no presentation. It's open to you guys. So really, again, the staff report was prepared to kind of just open the conversation. We've received a lot of feedback. The recommendation is not to throw the management plan out. It's to really look at it from with the eye of it's still a great, valuable document that has a lot of wonderful information in it that's still valuable to the city. And where we take that management plan that was created in a time where we didn't have public access to a time now that we have public access, and what does that look like with the land trust being a part of that conversation. So that's why Lena's on the phone right now.
Okay. Also, for those watching the meeting here or at home, Commissioner Christian wrote in some comments, and he's not here, but he provided additional history to Newell Open Space, and I urge everybody to look into that on the city's website to read those. Okay, committee comments, commissioner comments. Commissioner Mattson?
Yeah, this is a really good topic. We've been trying to update the Newell management plan for, I realized 10 years ago was the last time we touched it. So, and I sent an email to Ally saying, okay, what does this look like? What are we doing? Are we talking about process? Are we doing a deep dive? And it sounds like it's a combination. But one question I have is, when we talked about the land trust, and it's a question for Lena, you know, when we made decisions about how we would open Newell and what our hours would be, et cetera, did we have interim agreements between the city and the land trust, or was that all just, you know, verbal and we moved on? Okay.
Well, that's why we need to have this conversation.
Just asking.
Yeah, no, but I'm trying to give the short answer, but it's more going to be a longer answer. So please forgive me, but that's a great point, Chair Mattson. That's the reason why we needed to determine our baseline. A lot of the things that we've done is not consistent with there's the potential of public access, but it's not consistent with the management plan. And the management plan was created in a time where we didn't have public access. And so we really need to memorialize that. We really need to have our baseline. And when we talk about baseline, it's identifying what we're currently doing now. What is our maintenance schedule? You know, when is bird nesting season? When can we mow? When can we blade? Identifying the type of property that we have and our hours of operation. Are we open year round? Do we restrict trail access? Because we currently do not. Anybody can hike anywhere in that property. So it's just really identifying the baseline right now with the conservation, with the land trust being a part of that conversation. So potentially we can talk about future opportunities, what we want to do.
Yeah, I get that. Actually, my question is, thank you for that. My question is for Lena, because I know there have been conversations over the last 20 years. Like, you know, there was a trail that we wanted to build during REI Trail Day, and I know Lena was asked, is that okay? So I want to ask her directly, just kind of how those conversations have gone, because we've had Newell open for 10 years somehow, and so I just like to ask, you know, how is that done on other properties that the land trust has conservation easements on too? Does that make sense, Lena?
Is my voice coming through?
Maybe she's not on. Okay.
Lena, can you hear us?
For you, can you hear me?
She's in Newell, there's not great reception.
Yes.
Let's put in a cell tower.
Anyway,
Okay.
so I approached this exercise and I sent to Ally and to Liz and Tara, I think it's 3 pages I just went through the document and tried to figure out if I was to modify this document, what might be the issues? Because I'm not quite sure how to capture this in a meeting, but so I figure that this document that I've sent you guys is kind of for a working document as whoever is updating the plan.
Commissioner Mattson, Lena's going to attempt to log in from her phone to see if that resolves the issue. So hopefully we can come back to that question.
Can I speak while we're waiting? Director Ikeda, in the Newell Management Plan, page 64 of our agenda packet, under the project objectives, primary objectives, the third one is provide for public use and enjoyment, designated trail system, special use protected areas, improvements to roads, bridges, fences, signs, barn area, possible caretaker residence, site and recreational use management plans. That sounds pretty clear to me that is providing for recreational use. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. So, like I mentioned in the plan, it had identified that the property would have public access, but the plan was created in a time where we didn't have public access. So it's the potential of having, and when you read later on the plan, because it does identify passive recreation, like the type of use, biking, hiking, and running. But if you read further in, I have to find it in my notes, it actually says that later on when it comes to biking, that would be a further discussion with the land trust for approval. So it's again, yes, Newell, I think there was a plan that it would potentially have public access, but we don't have anything in here. When we received the property, we didn't have a plan on how to operate, maintain it, or manage it with public access. We received a management plan with the potential to do that, but nothing that outlined that plan. That's what we're missing right now. We're missing that plan to be able to maintain it as an open space preserve with open cattle grazing, and that has public access. We have a great plan. It identifies the history, the biological surveys, the potential of what it could be, but what it could be. It's not what it is now or what it could be in the future. And that's what we're missing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hughes, okay.
Well, yeah, I wanted to say, I did read this a while back when you provided it. Thank you. It's a pretty thoughtful document. I mean, they really did project out, and I feel like there's a lot that went into it. I was going to point out what Tara had mentioned as well. I guess my curiosity is, what have we been doing so far? Like, how did that come up in terms of maintenance, the mowing, the scraping, just maintaining the road that goes around it now? And I also wanted to point out that they did encourage future trails, and I think they did include bikes somewhere in that document. And I also wanted to mention potentially down the road, I don't know if this is how public this is, but there is going to be a bike park adjacent to that if things go well. It's being talked about. I think a lot of people know that already. And so Newell has the potential to be a jumping on point for that. You know, it's going to be a fence line apart. So, you know, with this document in mind, I guess I'm trying to grasp what more we need to do. Are we rewriting this document or just amending it?
No, so you bring up some good points, because back to the original conversation is we need to have the baseline, because yes, there's a potential that the city could be getting an additional adjacent property. However, the land trust can come in at any time and say, we don't want public access anymore. They have that right. They have that legal right to come in and say that. They can tell us that they don't want bikes up there. There's actually studies that show that mountain biking causes more erosion than cattle do. And so there are,
Cattle are doing some
Lena can go, but
work up there.
but the point that I'm making is, at any time, the land trust can come in and say, we don't want public access.
Even though that's against the Bernie Newell's wishes of leaving the property to the city?
They have property, so Lena, would you like to step in? Is she there? Hear me now? I'll try to navigate this as best as I can. Hopefully, she can step in and correct me. So the conservation easement, they have legal rights to the property, and they hold the conservation easement, which is ultimately to protect the sensitive habitat and the species that are up there. The Newells, yes, they had every intention for it to be a public facility, but at any time that can change. That's not set in stone of what a preserve is. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to find that baseline, to your point, Commissioner Hughes, I was going to call you by your first name, that we need to determine on, what we're doing now. And part of that is we're maintaining it the best way that we can, and to the natural environment that it is. We have to be aware of the nesting season. We cannot mow whenever we want. There's specific dates when we can mow. We also we can't do trail grading, like we can't blade whenever we want. It has to be in a specific time frame. Like I just found out from our lovely city engineer over here, that I can only blade, I believe it's from April through October, if those dates are even correct. But beyond, I think October 15th, we start getting into the protected waters of the U.S. and we can't do things on there. So it's identifying what we're doing now and then potentially looking further out with the potential of opportunities that could be coming down the road and what that looks like. But we really need to memorialize what we're doing now, because we have a document that says the potential for public access. Now we have public access, but there's nothing that came with that public access of how to manage, operate, and maintain an open space preserve with passive recreational experiences.
So that will include the maintenance, the mowing, the blading, the dates that you can do it within?
Yeah,
So,
and-
so will the city hold firm to that? I know it's it's tough. That's been the biggest issue, especially because I ride my bike up there, and so do a lot of my friends. I know a lot of people that hike up there, and as you well know, right now it's not very well maintained, and so nobody's riding up there. And that's, I think, the biggest complaint is when it gets done. I mean, is it a matter of setting money aside, or is it a matter of just scheduling?
No, it's a variation of things. I'll use this year as a perfect example.
year was tough.
We did Ridge Trail Day in November with anticipation of the rains that were coming in the winter. We had heard the community talk about the cattle damage up on the loop, past the second cattle gate. That's right after we secured the grazing license with the Azevedo family. I spent a lot of time working with them, and if you look at their license agreement, they actually are now going to be helping maintain the damage that's caused by the cattle, and part of that is blading the trail when there's damage. So we had every intention of rolling out that plan and doing the bird survey in April and mowing in May and blading in May once the trails had dried, because that's the other aspect. We have to wait for the trails to be dry. There cannot be moisture in the trails because of the U.S. water.
Yeah.
What's the correct word? The waters of the U.S. So when we did the trail upgrades in November, it was the anticipation to move into the winter season and blade right after the rains, mow in anticipation of the summer because we knew that the weeds get high. But the rains went a lot longer than anticipated. We weren't able to do the bird survey until May. We didn't get permission to mow until June. By that time, the trails were dried out. The cattle had done their damage. The Azevedos just bladed 3 weeks ago. So the plan that we had set in place, the point that I'm trying to make is the plan that we had set in place is going to be what Mother Nature allows us to do. It's an open space preserve. We have certain rules and regulations that we have to follow as being the property owners in conjunction with the conservation easement, with the land trust. And it really is subject to nature and what we can do.
Yeah. And I want to point out that some of the water that was sitting on the trail that prevented anybody from getting past was a culvert that was blocked. So that water sat exceptionally long. And, I think if that initial trail up to the second gate would have been more accessible had that culvert been dug out. So I'd point that out. But yeah, it was an exceptionally wet winter, and it was rough to ride anywhere. So, but yeah, I mean, my comment would be, I moving forward, I obviously would love to see a scheduled maintenance plan, depending on nature and rains and all that good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Commissioner Mattson?
So it sounds to me, I mean, the title of this item is Update the Newell Open Space Preserve Management Plan. But really, it's create a new management plan going forward. Is that correct? So we're not taking this document and updating it. We're creating a whole new document.
No. I'm not suggesting that we create a whole new document.
Okay,
I'm
so-
suggesting we update it to fit
Okay.
with the current times right now.
Okay, got it. And, okay, I'm good.
Is Lena accessible?
See. Lena, can you try your microphone again, please? Still no luck. Lena, would you mind logging back into the meeting one more time? I'm going to keep you as an attendee and see if we can resolve the issue that way. I need to log off? Okay.
Ooh,
It's fancy.
we're gonna be Space Invaders or something.
Video game.
Yeah, I put this here. I wanted you to see this.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Just easier because it's small.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. In a little bit. Okay, while we're trying to log Lena back in, I just wanted to share this that I found on uslegal.com. This is a definition of open space land. Any land zoned for open space by a comprehensive land use plan adopted by a city or county legislative authority, or any land area in which the preservation in its present use would, 1, conserve and enhance natural or scenic resources, 2, protect streams or water supply, 3, promote conservation of soils, wetlands, beaches, or tidal marshes, 4, enhance the value to the public of abutting or neighboring parks, forests, wildlife preserve, nature reservations, or sanctuaries, or other open space. 5, enhance recreation opportunities. 6, preserve historical sites. 7, preserve visual quality along highway, road, and street corridor or scenic vistas. Or 8, retain in its natural state tracts of land not less than 1 acre situated in an urban area and open public use on such conditions they may be reasonably required by the granting authority. And I state this again just because I wanted to highlight enhancing recreation opportunities is a part of open space land and enjoying that land. Also on that note, you know, we had our park spaces evaluated in the past by a consultant, and it was identified that we lacked regional parks here. We obviously don't have the space for that, and I think that Newell Open Space is the closest we're going to be able to get to that. This is one of our rare, like, recreational kind of, you know, opportunities out in this town, and I think that's something, you know, a treasure that we have, and the community values that, and maintaining access and recreational opportunity to this land, I think, is very important. And it's not uncommon for open spaces to have mountain biking either. Some examples of other open spaces in our region that are open spaces that have mountain biking are Rockville Hills Regional Park and Open Space, that's pretty close to here, as well as Lynch Canyon Open Space, Skyline Ridge Open Space Preserve south of Palo Alto, I'm not referring to the Napa one, Sierra Vista Open Space Preserve in San Jose, Healdsburg Ridge Open Space Preserve, Glenwood Open Space Preserve in Santa Cruz. I mean, the list keeps going, so it's not an uncommon thing to be requesting mountain bike access to open spaces. Is Lena back yet?
Lena, would you mind trying to speak again? Looks like we're still having some technical issues.
I don't know what's happening. I can't read.
Lena, you have permission to talk. Yeah. That's interesting.
Thanks, Janelle.
All right, we'll have our IT continue to work on it.
Okay, I'd like to open it for public comment at this time.
Okay. We'd like to acknowledge before we open up public comment that we did receive one written public comment from Yvonne Baginski. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Yvonne, please go to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Baginski. I have something I really want to stress. I don't know where you got the biological resources report. I did look online on what was documented for this meeting, and I didn't see it. And you said it was done in 2008? 18. So I did not see that. So a lot of my comments had to do because I didn't see that.
Yeah, it wasn't included in the staff report. I found it today.
Okay, because that's really an important report and needs to be updated and kept kept an eye on, because when I'm reading the environmental impact reports for all of the development that they're doing in South Napa County and in the industrial parks, they are annihilating wildlife habitat, and they are claiming in those reports that that wildlife can relocate to Lynch and Newell Canyon. So they are counting on those two wildlife conservation areas as where all those animals that they are annihilating, they're all going to go there, especially true of the birds. And so I really think that needs to be kept in mind, because I didn't realize every single biological resources report is saying that those animals can go to Newell or to Lynch Canyon. So I think that needs to be considered. Also, the threatened species and the plants, and how to protect that from the mountain bikes and from the grazing, and how that will be done. That's very important, and the trail. So I really want to keep an eye out on the wildlife, because all of that development and every bit of land from 29 south to Vallejo is up for development. They're all looking at that area as where all the animals are going to go. So I just want to bring that up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to make a public comment? Can you go ahead and try this? Is there anybody in the Zoom audience that'd like to make a public comment? Let's see if Janelle. Hi, Janelle. Can you hear us? No.
Can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Janelle, we'll go ahead and try to circle back. Our IT is currently working on the audio issue with Zoom. Thank you for your patience. Chair, it looks like that's all the public comment we have right now.
Okay, thank you.
So we're updating this plan to create a current plan, right? I think that's what you confirmed. Because I feel like I'm getting two answers from you, so that's why I'm asking again. Are we updating this plan to reflect current, have the land trust approve it, and move on forward?
It depends on what we want to update. So again, this is going to be an ongoing conversation. I don't see a lot being specifically done this evening. The main point was having Lena be a part of this conversation, because any update that we suggest or want to make to the management plan, she's going to need to be a part of that conversation. I know in the past, OSAC, sorry. OSAC has, we've identified some things that we wanted to update in here, like the forest management plan. We wanted the maintenance. We wanted to talk about trail maintenance. There's a lot of things. So yes, if you find something that we should potentially be looking at and updating for this being a living document and being our document that's going to manage and operate that facility, I'm calling it a facility because that's what I do. I call my parks facilities. So please forgive me, that preserve. This is the time to make those recommendations, and then what we can do is we can work through that. And just because you make a recommendation doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but you can definitely identify any potential update that you would like to see, and then we can continue to talk about it as a body.
Okay, so I believe I did the right homework then in going through the document and identifying, this is outdated. Do we want to do this instead? So my question is, do you want me to read the 3 pages, the 4 pages? I don't think that makes sense. But instead, is it going to a staff person that's going to combine all this stuff? And that's my question is process. How are we going to physically update this? And I know it's going to take us some time.
Do you mean like maybe like a working group or something like that?
No, I'm actually asking staff. Who's going to be doing the work? I've been told previously that we cannot have subcommittees, so it's not like there's going to be commissioners working on this. It sounds like staff or a consultant might be doing it. So anyway, it sounds like I've done the correct homework for you, and there's a number of areas in which you're right. I mean, the public access part is way out of whack at this point. The fencing questions, there's a bunch of questions there that kind of allude to this needs to be resolved. It may have already been resolved, but it's not documented.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping this will be helpful.
Yeah, it will be helpful. I think again, any comments, and then we can look into it. The great thing when I started this conversation with Lena a while back, she has done this a lot. She's updated a lot of plans, and she has a lot of great resources. And so we were envisioning that this, since it is a plan, it's not a master plan, it's a management plan, that we can do this internally. We are hiring a full-time open space coordinator. We're hoping to have that person on no later than October. I know it's really exciting. It's finally here. We have hiring interviews tomorrow, so wish me luck to find a great person for this role. But I do foresee this being something that our staff will do, and building those relationships with the other open spaces, because part of this research was also reaching out to East Bay Regional Park District. I talked to them about how they manage and operate their trails with cattle and allowing pedestrian access and passive recreation use, and they're having the same challenges. I'll be frank with you, they're having the same challenges, and again, it comes down to weather elements and things like that, but having those resources too, and having Lena's help is really gonna, I think, help take us to that next level of what I think this community would like to see Newell become.
I feel, I'm pretty sure that in the past that our past open space coordinator was using electrical fences that could be moved around to help control that. You don't remember that?
She looked into it.
She looked into it. But she had
It's
the
not,
pricing for it.
it's not feasible. When we talk about the cattle right now, one of the main challenges with the cattle is there's no water source on Newell other than the natural spring that's around the loop. The Azevedos don't have any interest of developing that right now. The water source that the cattle has is in Lynch Canyon. So having them go from open grazing to controlled grazing is more complicated, and it's not a reasonable request. That would require them to make some major operational changes for their business, and we're just not in a position to do that to them at this time.
Wait, what are we suggesting
Volume
about the
working?
grazing? What, like, I mean, right now it's just open, right? I mean, they just go wherever, except for
Correct.
down towards the first gate.
Correct.
At
Okay.
times, there'd been discussion about whether you wanted to have various, like, high-level grazing and fencing for that. There was some various discussions.
Oh, gotcha.
But my understanding is that the grazing lease is active and current, and we're not gonna mess with that, I think,
Yeah, I mean, that's,
yeah.
I wouldn't
So
want to mess with it.
that's why the allusion to fencing is that there was discussions about trying to
Gotcha.
change it, but that has been,
That's the first I've heard of the fence.
Yeah, we had talked about this in past meetings, and one of the biggest concerns with the cattle grazing was really a seasonal thing. When the trails are wet, and then the cattle's prints, smash it all up, and then it dries, and then now you have like sprained ankle territory, and going head over whatever the term is for on your bike when you flip forward.
Over the bars.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This was the suggestions in the past about this, weren't like forever, every day, having to plan for this kind of thing. It was really just during wet seasons. But it sounds like that didn't make it into the new lease.
So the license does call out that the licensee is required to fix any damage to the trail. The license has only been in effect for a year.
Okay.
It was a working partnership with the Azevedos, and it took a lot of time and energy to really outline the responsibilities of both the property owner and the licensee of the up in Newell, and they were really receptive and they understood the damage. But like I said, this was really the first year of the license, and the weather really played into the challenges that we faced to try to manage the trail to the way that we wanted to. Like I mentioned, I started here in January 2022, and I actually went up to Newell and I saw the damage on the trail. And getting the Azevedos to sign a license after 50 years of being on that property was a huge accomplishment for the city, and identifying that they would be a part of the solution, not just them grazing up there, but they would help fix the damage that the cattle have done. I will tell you, I have enjoyed working with the Azevedo family. They are an amazing family. They run an amazing operation, but they were faced with the same challenges that we faced. It was really hard to get up there because of the water and the muddy and the muckiness of the trail, and we just weren't able to do the things that we wanted to do because everything compiled.
Yeah.
We didn't do the bird survey. We have to have the bird survey before you can do the blading or mowing, and by the time we did that, the trail was already dry. It did not result in what we originally planned. And so I wish I can sit here and tell you that our plan was successful, but it wasn't without effort of both the Azevedos and the city trying to improve something that we both identified that was an issue.
Well, I'm happy to hear that the sentiments made it into the agreement, and it sounds like we're in the beginning of this positive turnaround, so good things to come there. Okay.
So if I can ask about that agreement, is that available to us?
Yeah,
Yes,
Oh, it's in here?
it's in your packet.
It's more to read. Does that include beyond the top gate down to the parking lot gate?
It's only the top gate and the grazing area. So they are not responsible for anything outside of the grazing area.
Because I will say their cows came down. I mean, that's part of the problem. And it's not just the cows. It's the soil type. That soil shrinks, and that's why the scraping is really important.
Well,
So it's the cows leave some pretty damaging hooves, but ultimately it's when it does dry up, it shrinks back.
Yep.
These huge cracks, and it's at this point you can't even really walk on it.
Yeah, we understand the soil biology up there, but the other problem that we're having is the public not recognizing that they need to shut the gate when they go through the
yeah, I
gates.
know.
The cattle wouldn't be down on the lower portion of the trail if the public was more aware of what was going on and why the gates were there. And I think that's part of the education process as well. I think
Yeah.
that's something that the city could really work on. Like after looking at East Bay Regional Park District and all of their open space, they have these beautiful signs that they have posted everywhere. We don't have that. We need to work on the education piece and really educating the public of the importance of those cattle gates and why it's important to keep them shut, because it's also a nuisance to the ranchers too. The animals become they get into dangerous situations. They get into the creek beds. They get into places they shouldn't be, and just even for their safety. So. Yes, we understand the soil biology out there. We are aware of the clay type and what happens when it dries out and shrinks and everything like that. But the more maintenance that we're able to provide to that trail, the better it's going to get. I mean, I have a professional rancher right to my left. And we're constantly talking about what we should be doing up there and the things that we got. And we had a plan this year. We had a plan. We talked about it. We strategized about it. And unfortunately, because of the weather elements, it did not come to fruition. But it doesn't mean that it can't. It doesn't mean that we can't actually document it and write it down and have a maintenance plan that's publicized, that's put out there, and that we share with the community of what we're doing up there, because we are hearing the community. We hear the community. It's very challenging when you're dealing with multiple constraints that are sometimes out of our control, and we have to be respectful to them.
And I will comment that some of the frustration from the community comes from, I mean, before you were here, just the lack of maintenance that was being done over time. So it's kind of building, and it, with the season that we just had, I mean, it really wasn't available to many people for very long. So I think the frustration kind of mounted and grew. But it is the lack of maintenance that was occurring, the lack of attention to the park, and we felt like we were all paying attention. I mean, the community members, the people that were using it. So I think it kind of came to a head this season. So if you feel frustration, that's where it comes from.
And I think you
Quick
could say that
question. Is the
every
volume
year
working?
we have this discussion, and it's a continuing frustration. So.
Well, the
it's-
great thing
yeah.
about it is it's finally on your work plan as a commission. So not only is the Newell Management Plan update on your work plan, but we're also going to be talking about trail maintenance and standards in general, citywide. And we're going to bring those recommendations to council. And that's where we're going to be able to have a plan and ask for resources and hopefully change that frustration into action. Because that is probably the one thing that I've been hearing most is we've been talking about it a lot, but there's no action. And so we did something pretty amazing this year. We put it on a work plan. It got approved by council. And now we just need to figure out what those trail standards and maintenance are going to be and what our mule management plan is going to include since it now allows public access. We're starting that process. This is where action happens, and you're going to be a part of that action.
Sounds like a good pep talk.
Is the sound working?
I hear you, Lena.
Oh my gosh, it actually worked.
Very low.
Try that volume.
Can you hear?
We could hear it's not very
No?
loud. We're looking into adjusting volume.
I can hear you. I've been able to hear Janelle when she was speaking as well.
Lena, could you get closer to your mic?
Is that close enough? It's right next to my mouth.
What did she say?
It's right next to her mouth.
Lena, we're going to do our best to listen to you. So we're going to be very quiet.
Oh, well, that's not a little bit of pressure at all. I wanted to say the management plan has been in place, as Ali said, since 2001 and was done prior to any public access. When the preserve opened in 2015, that probably was the best time to reassess the public access component of the recreational plan, because as you can see today, the two pieces don't mesh well. So I think back to Nance's first comment, the Land Trust has been reviewing piecemeal activities because the public access component of the management plan is out of date. Seriously out of date. And then what was the other part on mountain biking? So I wanted to reiterate, when we review conservation easements, the Land Trust looks at the identified conservation values, if there's any information on grantor intent, but also the stated purpose of the conservation easement. If those are not clear, or in some cases they are incompatible or inconsistent with each other, the Land Trust has to make a best determination based on the information available to it within the conservation easement, in this case, the management plan, any property documentation we have during the acquisition of the conservation easement, and any monitoring reports done since. So the conservation easement allows for both open space and habitat protection. It allows for grazing and agricultural uses, and it allows for passive recreational uses. In a lot of places, we've identified that these three uses can be incompatible. And so finding the balance between the continued operation of those three activities will be key within the management plan. The other, and I just want to point a comment on the mountain biking. Biking is called out in one area for part of the passive recreational use. There is a second component that very clearly identifies biking as a to be observed use on the property in terms of how it affects other conservation values, any impacts it has to the habitat, to the soils, to the roads, and all of the other pieces. And so that may be a use that the Land Trust under the conservation easement could find that is incompatible with passive recreational uses. Doesn't preclude other recreational uses, but it may provide some limit in terms of mountain biking in particular. That's all to be decided based on the use. I think the larger discussion you were having about grazing and the impacts on the roads are also echoed through mountain bike use. And a lot of it comes down to seasonality. On our preserves, where we have mountain biking use allowed, if the roads are wet, the trails are closed, point blank. That's just the way we manage it so that the maintenance costs are lower to the land trust over time. I'll stop there.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a common thing in open space areas about mountain bikes too. Any commissioner comments on this?
Yeah, Lena, I agree with you that 2015 was probably the good time to have revisited this and rewritten. And I know, we had lots of discussions, and I'm sure you were involved in a lot of them too, as we were trying to figure out how to open Newell. So I'm wondering, in terms of the piecemeal approvals you've done over the years, is there do you have the master folder of all those that we could look at and go, okay, we got to put this in, we got to put this in, we got to put this in, or is it better to start fresh?
I have some of the approvals, yes. Right before Ally started at the city, I actually sent something to Jason detailing all of the open-ended or existing approvals for activities on the Newell Preserve. So that was codified in an email to Jason. I probably have a copy of that as well. That kind of tracks where various of those projects were. Something like the orienteering course was request for an approval by the land trust, and so we did review that. I know that the orienteering course has been implemented. I don't know how it exists after the fire, but there are different pieces. Yes, those can be provided so that they're also included. The other part that might be worth considering is sometimes a management plan. This management plan from 2001 is incredibly detailed. And for my purposes, for monitoring and enforcing against the conservation easement, this type of plan is, say, like A+ grade. Do you want to recreate that? No, I don't think so, which is why I think updating pieces of it that are more relevant is the way to go. I heard a lot of conversation about maintenance work too. And so there are, ideally, what you would include in the management plan is some of the higher level goals for the property in terms of how you would be managing it for these various uses, and includes some deliverables to work for into the future, as well as tools to measure them against. And then based on that, and I'm going to say this tentatively and not granting approval from the land trust, that if the activity is approved under the management plan, maintenance required to maintain that use subject to the management plan would likely be consistent with the terms of the conservation easement. So they kind of all wrap together in a way.
That makes sense. I'm glad to hear that there's a documentation email that will help kind of pull all these strings together.
Lena, does the any of that documentation include the discussion on the bridge?
I don't know anything about a bridge.
Oh, in the original management plan, there was a discussion how there used to be a bridge that went over the creek, kind of by the barn. And we spent a lot of time here and there over the last 15 years trying to figure out if it made sense to try to put a bridge there for a trail use. And I think Cuesta was the one that said, yeah, the environmental would be really hard on that. So I think that's all that I remember. I don't know if you remember anything else, Tara.
Well, I remember it coming down to being maybe pedestrian only because it would have less impact, and the anchors for the bridge having to be pretty clear from the water, which I think then the cost goes up because it would be a longer bridge to not disrupt the habitat.
Yeah, and I think it was so that there's a trail on in the management plan, figure 7, Trail J and K, kind of, I think you couldn't get to those without that bridge.
Yeah.
And so those trails actually never got implemented.
Oh, and another reason for the bridge was actually to help
Get to the barn.
prevent further damage to the creek, because we were finding that people were like sledging through that creek and through the mud and disrupting the creek. So we thought that it could be a benefit by having people cross over on a bridge rather than go through the creek.
I don't have anything that came to me separate about the bridge whatsoever. I have projects regarding the barn stabilization and some emails on some trail improvement, and that would have been the trail from the parking lot up to the first gate. But otherwise, no, nothing on the bridge.
Okay. Is there any kind of stance that the Land Trust might have on something like that? I
Not
mean,
without reviewing the terms of the easement
I
and the
figured, yeah.
purpose of such installation.
Chair, would you like to reopen public comment? We did have one person in the
Oh,
Zoom
yeah.
audience that wanted to make a public comment.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's
Okay.
open public comment.
Janelle, are you with us?
I'm here. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yay. You have 3 minutes, Janelle. Thank you for your patience.
Sure. Hi. Hi, everyone. And hi, Lena. Nice to hear your voice. I'm Janelle Kellick with American Canadian Community and Parks Foundation. Really enjoying listening to the conversation and excited to hear about the action. And sounds like there's a lot of momentum gathering around Newell. As things move forward, I just want to say, kind of on behalf of the foundation that you have a nonprofit partner in the city that's really interested in supporting Newell initiatives and helping to leverage resources, especially among all of the complexities with the project as a whole, or open space as a whole. So, we're here, we're really interested in supporting. And one thing that I noticed as I, hike and bike in other areas around the Bay is that most cities and many trail systems have dedicated nonprofit partner groups or community friends type groups that come in and help with maintenance. Of course, abiding by all of the restrictions and rules related to conservation easements and fish and wildlife. So we're here, we're really interested in working together and supporting in any way possible. So thank you.
Thank you, Janelle. Is there anyone else in the Zoom audience that would like to make a public comment? Chair, that looks like all the public comment we have.
Okay, thank you. So Director Akita, did you want us to go through the plan and suggest which sections we think need to be updated?
We can either do that tonight or we can table this conversation later and you can take the plan back and we can always reconvene and discuss what you would think. What I would like to do is I would like to outline our baseline where we are now and get that information from Jason on all the approved recreational stuff that's been identified and have that be our baseline of from 2001 to where we are now. And then we can come back together and we can discuss that and discuss any potential updates or changes that you would think that would help with creating a third section to this management plan that actually identifies the public access and the public use. And again, those would just be recommendations and suggestions, and then we would take it back to the Land Trust and have that conversation with them, because ultimately, like Lena said, she'd have to evaluate it based off of the conservation easement and what the preserve was potentially used for, which is the 3 uses: the preserve, the agricultural, and the public access. So That's my recommendation for this evening, because again, this is going to be the first of many conversations. I don't foresee us accomplishing quite a lot this evening of changing the entire plan. This is going to be an ongoing discussion, and like I said, the fact that we're even here to talk about it and finally do something about it is really exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to table this till we have a full committee. Yeah.
Can I ask a process question based on what you just said, which I thought was excellent? So does it make sense to wait to provide more comments until you guys have gotten a chance to kind of do the history of 2001 to current, and then we'll look at that and then plan and come up with, okay, perfect.
I think so. Yeah, I
yeah.
think that would be best because then we can identify our baseline and then we can, because again, we're going to need to take this back to council, right? So council needs to be part of this conversation and part of the update. We really need to tell them where we're at. And then with the potential of future needs, we're going to need to ask for resources and what that looks like too. And that's going to potentially play into the update of the management plan.
Okay, then I will say I'm gonna hold on to my
I have your
thing.
3-page
There's
document.
no reason, I don't think there's any reason for me to ask to have you circulate to the committee at this point, but if you want to, feel free. I'll just kind of hold it onto it.
I mean, I think it would be nice to share just so they can see into your thought
I
process.
think Liz is copied on it, and, you know, really, guys, all I did is I went through front to back and tried to, you know, put in comments. And I know it's not an exact science, but trying to grab it. I'm so glad I found the 2013 document that Robin and I did. So.
And let's keep in mind that sections 1 and 2, like to Lena's point, is a great document. So hopefully we won't have to alter too much in there. And we're thinking about public access and maintenance standards for section 3. I'm calling it section 3 on the interim basis.
Yeah, and we'll still find, I think you're right. 1 doesn't have a lot, but 2, there's definitely things that are outdated and, you know, we've moved past, so, cool.
So Nance, these are yours?
This is, yeah, I went
Oh,
through,
okay.
yeah, I went through the whole
That's what I was
document
gonna
trying
ask.
figure it
I
out.
would like to definitely see what my fellow commissioners are suggesting. And I definitely would like more time to spend with this, so.
You did this
If-
in 2011, right?
If I
No,
may,
I did this today, guys.
if I may chime in,
This is from today, this is, and it has lots, I'm sure it has more question marks and periods in it, so.
would be great for a tracking mechanism is that we email, there's ways now with our new Outlook, our Word 365 migration, the Microsoft migration, right, 365, that we could email, send out a document that globally captures everyone's comments in the area that it's commented on, so we can track them and go, oh, we all have the same thoughts. It'd be a lot easier on staff resource time too to see all those comments, and kind of like we do for surveys, like the local waste safety plan we did last year. We had that site, and it actually pinpoints all the comments in the document. So
I think that's a great idea. Like, I know Google Docs does that,
Like
but
that.
the one you're saying, is that,
Yeah.
do you have to have that program, or is it free, like open source?
we
Everybody
have it. So I think once we email it to you, you have access to it.
Okay.
And have I got an offer for you? Robin Myers typed up this entire management plan because the city did not have an electronic copy of it. And I've been communicating with her. She's home, I think, on the 10th. I think if the city doesn't have it in your files, I'm sure, hopefully she has it on her computer still and she can send it. Because that would save a heck of a lot of time. And I have no idea, you know, maybe you
said
have
you have the
access to
PDF.
it, but the PDF, but this is actually a Word document that could be dumped into whatever this program is, right?
Well, you can use a PDF too,
You
but
can? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah,
You want me still to ask her?
sure, why not?
I will.
I think you can go, you have to Word Docs. You have
Oh,
to-
that's, yeah, sometimes it doesn't work that well, though. Sometimes if the page is zooey.
Lena, did you want to add anything else before we move on from this item?
Loser again?
If she writes in the chat, could we see that? Oh, okay.
Lena, we'll touch base later, but I just really want to thank you for your time this evening. I know you're in Portland right now attending a training and our conference. And so thank you so much for spending time with us this evening and providing your insight from the Land Trust. Thank you, and we'll be in contact.
Thank you, I appreciate
Thanks,
that too.
Lena.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on.
So, what's that?
All these
Oh, what are
papers.
we looking at? American Canyon High School.
What is that? Is everybody wearing clothes? Okay, moving on to management and staff reports. The update on Newell Open Space Trail and Parking Lot Scope of Work.
Here,
Oh, I'm sorry.
You turned me off.
Back on.
Good evening, Erica Smithies, Public Works Director. Good evening, Chair and Community of American Canyon. I'm here to present the updated 90% plans for the new open space. We were last here, I believe, in June, presenting 70 or 60% plans and an estimate at that time. Since that point, I'm not sure if we shared with you, but we had to scale back the project significantly. It was $1 million project. And a little more history of the project. This is a 10-year project in the making, probably even longer than that, because the plan was in place with the Newell Open Space Preserve, which we just heard a lot about. But this project has morphed from the original report to a really massive project that we presented in June, and now we're scaling back to the original intent that also brought the price down about half. So I'm not sure if you guys have had a chance to look at the plans that were attached to the report, but the original project was to make improvements, put an ADA accessible stall for parking, and then to smooth up the trail, make an ADA accessible trail, or ADA got brought up later, but make the trail more accessible up to the first gate to the trail. At some point, we added on another 600 to 800 feet. Are you looking for me, or? Oh, making it bigger, okay. At some point, we added another segment of trail. We received a grant in 2016 that was specifically for the first portion of the trail and the parking lot improvements. But then the project has morphed since 2016. So again, we scaled the project back, but we still saw a need to improve that parking lot. The parking lot was going to be just gravel with a concrete platform or paved platform for one ADA accessible parking stall. We thought it was still prudent to put in pavement in that area, an ADA accessible stall, and also align with all the new improvements, Watson Ranch, Vintage Ranch, to align the entrance and exit with Donaldson. So it'll be a four-way stop essentially. And then if they're coming in from Donaldson, they will have to exit and go right on Newell at some point, and then either go around one of the new roundabouts or move on forward from there, and then to get back down on southbound Newell Drive. What you see in here is basically still a similar plan. It's a gravel trail up to the first gate. And then on page 5, we have showing the improved parking lot layout. We received 2 comments today, one from Napa Valley Transportation Authority and the Napa Bicycle Coalition. Where's the bike racks? I've walked the trail a few times now and ridden it. I've never seen any bicyclists not using their bike on the trail and leaving them there, but also probably because of concerns about theft possibly. But I don't know why in 10 years, if it ever was brought up, why there was no bike racks thought of. So one of the big significant hurdles we need to get past is acquisition of the additional trail. There's portions that overlap on the Newell property currently that even with the new alignment, we still need to acquire. We're in the process of negotiating with the Newell family already on 2 other projects. So the idea is that we'll wrap it all up together.
I thought that was sorted out.
It's still in the works. But instead of having 3 different acquisition processes or a lot line adjustments, just do it all in one because there's multiple family members in the Newell Trust. So that makes it difficult for signing authorities. So the idea was we'll do it once and approach them with all 3 projects. So what we have here is the paved parking lot, the trail accessibility improvements, trailhead improvements. The other big hurdle, it will be funding to actually construct this project. We did get a 2-year extension from the state on the smaller grant we got in 2016. But we still need to get additional funding to even complete this project. A bike rack, several bike racks are not going to be a detriment to adding to the site. It's a matter of getting the funding to physically construct. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions for you. We do know there's some developer fees that are supposed to go towards this project. I got to check in with the prior development agreements or conditions of Canyon Estates to confirm what that amount is, but that'll help contribute to the development of this project. Any questions? Sorry, I went on a little bit there.
Oh, no, I want to, this is great, thank you. I want to ask what's been dropped. Is it the Valley Trail that's been dropped from the project?
Is that the segment above the turnstiles to the first?
Picnic area?
Yes.
Okay, so this budget, does it include any money from Canyon Estates? I think it was 150,000, I think, or the developer fees?
Is that what there's the
I can't
150? If you recall that number, it's great.
I don't know if it's that number, maybe it's 250, I don't know. And then also, I think the Parks Foundation raised money for the Valley Trail, so, and I don't know how much that is, and so I'm wondering if if Janelle's still on the phone.
That's information that's new to me,
So
so
I
this
was
is all
wondering
good.
whether the ACCPF money had already come to the city, or if it's sitting somewhere, and whether this total cost can be done with existing money, or we need more money just to do this part of it.
We need more money.
How much more?
The grant is only $86,000. For, at the time, was a $300,000 project proposed in 2016. So,
And I think the Parks Foundation was 40,000.
It wasn't a lot, but
It was between 30 to 60, so it's 40 sounds about right.
okay.
so.
And then we'll confirm the numbers of the development impact fees.
Was there city matching money required for this grant?
I believe the time in, the design cost
Okay,
was
Is-
50% match.
so we have 86,000 available at this point, out of the 586?
86,000.
Uh-huh,
And then we'll check in on the developer impact fees and
yeah.
how we can come up with a match.
You can buy some gravel.
Well, we were looking at, how could we do sweat equity project? We've done a lot in the city as far as city staff doing work, volunteer work. I think this might be a little bit big to chew on, but that's where we gotta, the first thing first is get acquisition. So at the time, the property lines weren't known. So there was some farming being done on our side, there was farming being done, or a trail on their side, and it wasn't until the survey came in, it was like, so we need this acquisition to clean up the record.
I think the acquisition is why it's taken so long. It's been a work in progress for a very long time.
Yeah,
The good news is, though, we're moving forward with that, and we're hoping that if we need agreement, we're thinking December, so we're on track for that. It's just thinking about identifying the additional funding to put towards the project.
So the portion that was next, because I remember your presentation from last time, is it the lime tree from the parking lot
Yes.
gate up towards the
It's from the access gate, the first, which is about, is that about half a mile up to the?
Something like that.
Yes.
okay, so that would go away. Okay, bummer.
Because I think that was still a significant portion of money. I think that was from the last one, was over $100,000 or just for that portion of work.
What would it cost to add a permanent restroom?
That's a whole nother discussion. We already have a bathroom scheduled in the CIP. I think we have $150,000 for that bathroom,
Do you mean like a porta potty or?
a real permanent bathroom.
Oh,
So
so it's in the future.
so,
Yeah, we don't have that project identified in the next 5 years. Part of this project is identifying where a restroom would be located, but actually adding the restroom would be a different project. It's not included in this project. But we have identified that as being a potential location because of the portable restroom.
Okay. So are you laying the plumbing for that now before you do the gravel or We have to dig it
That's
up
a
later.
great comment to put in the plan. Having stub outs, you know, to the road would actually be great. That would be great.
So is this
Or
something that could
sleeves.
get divided into phases and then take, I mean, or are they phases?
The grant doesn't have a phase. So that's where, like, you know, that next 600 feet, the Valley Trail, that could be a phase, a future phase. A bathroom could be a future, the amenities, like we identified picnic table areas, and, because it's such a great location.
It is. It's a great piece of property.
Yes.
Does this grant have an expiration date?
Yeah, 2 more years.
2 more years, okay.
It had an expiration of June 30th of this year, and they gave us an extension.
Okay.
So do you feel
So-
like this is feasible in 2 years?
Hopefully sooner, but prices are only going up for construction.
Yeah, it really is.
So circling back to how the plans changed, the interest in parking lot, those are all pretty much along the same lines that we've been talking about. But my question now is, now that I know the Valley Trail is out of this, the Creekside Trail, have we degraded any of the quality of the construction of it?
We went to the Grail, the 12-inch gravel section, instead of the quarry fines. I know that was a concern of Barry's at the last meeting as well, like quarry, why put quarry fines in? I think that's another $80,000 add or $60,000 option to add that back in.
Is it Corey finds the stuff, it looks kind of like DG?
Yes,
Okay.
or it is DG. It's very similar, yes.
So that is out and gravel is in?
Well, gravel was always part of it. The DG was only this shorter segment up to the first main gate with the 2-foot shoulders.
So the ADA part, I thought that was in the grant. Like, I thought it had to be ADA, and
Was
the
not in the
ADA,
grant.
I thought that specified the percent grade and the smoothness of the trail, and I thought the quarry fines were important for the smoothness for like wheelchair access. But so you're saying you don't know about you don't have any kind of records of the ADA being part of it?
No, it was actually the state granting agency saying, if you cut out the ADA requirement, can you build it for less? Because their grant did not require ADA access. This is an open space preserve. There's going to be some limitation to ADA accessibility, feasibility, just being reasonable,
Yeah.
because it is open space.
But
It
that's
is-
why it was only to the first gate, too.
So we have the slopes.
The application was only to the first gate.
And the slope's still good for ADA if we wanted to, right?
Yes.
So what's interesting is the management plan actually talks about 2 parts of the trail should be ADA accessible, and it's actually the barns here, the old easement access, there used to be a kind of a parking lot area here. It's that part of the trail kind of near the barn that in the management plan said should be ADA accessible, and I was like, oh, we had it in the management plan? Okay. So, but I'm glad to hear the slope is still good, because sometimes people that have those kind of more rugged wheelchairs can make it over gravel, right?
And that was the other, also, our consultant was being very conservative. They were stopping the runs at 5%, and it's actually, you can go on existing grades, you can go to 8.333% because it is an existing grade, otherwise it really impacts the rest of the project. So they were being very conservative there, so it still meets the ADA requirements up to the gate with the gravel. So,
Is Janelle still on the line?
okay.
Can I open this to public comment? Okay, I'd like to do that, please.
Hey, Janelle, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Oh, good. Yes, we did donate, the Parks Foundation did donate money for this project. It was December of 2016, and it was $35,000 that was made donation to the city for the Newell Trail project at the time. So, yeah, great project. Love to see it move forward. And I definitely think adding bike parking at the trailhead would be a wonderful amenity for the community. It'd be great to be able to do that. So if there's any way to incorporate that into the plan or find the additional funding for it, very supportive of that. Thank you.
Janelle, who holds the check, the $35,000?
The city does. The city has it in their account.
Janelle, did that
We'll
have
find the
any-
money.
Was that specific for the Valley Trail or for just the original improvements from 2016?
That was for, I believe, the discussions that we had with Creighton at the time, where we made the donation. The way it was discussed was it was considered a donate to the city so it could provide a portion of their match needed for the
Okay.
grant.
Perfect.
So that was, I believe, the discussion that we had. I could go back and look through our minutes, but I think that's the way we approached it, us saying, knowing that we had, this chunk of money that we were able to donate and how it could best be used. So I could look into it in more detail if you need.
So it sounds like it's been used already for the match, right?
Well, we can research that. This is
Okay.
all helpful information to us.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, a few new staff members here.
We have a great
Yes.
finance director. He'll be able to figure out exactly where it's located and if it's been spent or not. Because we have spent money because of the plans. So we
Yeah.
can figure out the amount that's been spent and what funds were used for this portion of the project, the plans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
So you're adding bike parking, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, well, it's bike racks. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it would be great to have bike lockers at the city hall, but bike racks, I think, are definitely doable.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially if we're gonna get, the future picnic table amenities. People are gonna want to, meet friends, family. Yeah,
Yeah, cool.
Thank you very much.
all right.
Thanks for the update.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other commissioner comments about anything?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, well, the gala is this weekend, so hopefully there'll be some money coming back to, the community or in, some of our open space projects. All right, meeting adjourned at 8:28.